Hi, everyone. This is Rosalind Sadaka, and you're listening to WGSN-DB, the Going Solo Network. And I'm Rosalind Sadaka, the founder of the Child-Centered Divorce Network and divorce and co-parenting coach. And as you know, we focus on special guests who have a lot to share with us connected to the experience of divorce, dating after divorce, parenting, co-parenting, all of that. And today I'm very proud to have a guest with us who is very knowledgeable in an array of areas that are central to the co-parenting experience. And her name is Dena Stillman Nielson, and she's a retired family law attorney who now focuses on helping professional women manage co-parenting with their ex-spouse in a healthier way for themselves and for their children. And Dena is an author, a divorce consultant, coach, and speaker on all things divorce and co-parenting. And it's just delightful to have you join us today, Dena.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Well, you have a great background because having been a divorce attorney, you've been in the trenches, you understand so many of the dynamics that happen in the divorce equation, and you know how things can go off kilter, and that the importance of co-parenting effectively is pivotal to creating a long-term co-parenting relationship that's going to be in the best interest of the children, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And things can't go wrong.
Yes. So why don't we start by you telling us a little bit about yourself and why you're now working with women on divorce with children.
I'm sorry. My story is not necessarily remarkable, but it is unlikely that I would end up doing this. I just wrote a contribution to a book and it's called The Unlikely Lawyer. And it just reminds me of how crazy life can be sometimes and how things happen. And sometimes they fall into place and sometimes they don't. But I didn't become an attorney until I was 41. That's when I graduated from law school. I thought I was going to do Indian law, Native American stuff. And I worked with a gentleman there in Norman. I went to the University of Oklahoma, and our office was about 2 blocks from the school. So that was perfect, when I was in law school. And then when I got out, I just stayed there with him. And we did pretty amazing things for tribes and individuals. And it was a great experience. I worked with him for 8 years. But unfortunately, he passed away. He was only 56 years old.
Oh.
And yeah, so it was bad. And so that office closed, and then I moved to Colorado because mainly my daughter wanted to go to the University of Colorado, and I wanted in-state tuition. That was the main reason we moved. But I ended up working with a firm in Denver, and then I soon found out, you know what, I could do this myself. I don't need to be with this firm. So I opened my own law firm and had that for about 15 years. And we focused exclusively on family law. We only did divorces and things that had to do with family law. And it was a great experience. And during that time, I got a divorce myself and had 2 kids and, the whole thing. But it wasn't horrible, but it did take quite a while. It took about 3 years to convince everybody that this is how it was going to be. So yeah, so when I retired in 2018, I think it was, we moved to Texas, and I thought, okay, I'm going to be retired now. No, that didn't work out. I hated being just sitting around doing nothing. So when you have that personality that drives you to go to law school at 40 years old, I mean, you're not going to be able to just sit around. So I wrote the book. It's called Common Sense Divorce. I have it here. I'll show you. Oh, okay. There we go. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
So I wrote that, and so I thought, okay, now I'm going to be done. No. So anyway, it's just morphed into this whole thing with articles and speaking and writing another book, and just constantly something else is always down the road. So
Well, with all of that experience, I was wondering if you may have an opinion about what the most significant factors are that create divorce for parents.
that creates divorce for parents.
Yeah, and the co-parenting challenges that come with it, of course.
Yeah, I think all of that is based on lack of communication, really, and lack of the ability to be civil with each other once you realize that you don't want to be married to this person anymore. I will tell you from my own experience and a lot of clients that I've dealt with, the loss of self-respect, the loss of respect for the marriage, for the other person, that's a biggie, and that is really what drives that lack of communication, because you don't want to talk to that person, you don't want to have anything to do with them. But when you have children with that person, that's not an option, really. So you just have to be able to, suck it up, a lot of people say, and just do what's best for your kids. I mean, that's what you got to do. And if you can't do that, then I guess that's why the judge is there in the court, and that's what they're going to do. But my goal now is to try to make people understand that going to court's not the best option in 99% of the cases. Now, there are cases where that has to be the thing you do. I mean, there's just no option.
Mm-hmm.
But in most cases, and I can say this from all the cases that I handled, I think in most of those cases, even the ones we went to court, it wasn't necessarily the best option every time. But, you have to do what people want you to do. I mean, that's, part of it. Even though I would always try to say, we could settle this if whatever it was. And they would go, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. Okay. That's why I founded the Child-Centered Divorce Network, because I felt it was so important when you're a parent to really recognize the significance of keeping out of court, and how much better it is for everyone in the family, especially post-divorce, because parents don't always understand that once the divorce is over and they're in such a high tension arena, it's a lot harder to move into co-parenting effectively, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll tell you something else. The money that you're going to spend could be better spent on your college education account for your children. I mean, come on. I had so many post-divorce cases that I didn't do the divorce, but now they want to fight about everything. And, I would always say, well, we're going to mediation first and see if we can't work this out. And, sometimes we were able to work it out. And and that was the last time I saw them. I never saw them again. And then there were others that we were able to work it out, but they were right back, in 6 months wanting to do something else. Something else didn't fit. So it's just a matter of what your expectations are from the mediation or even in court. What is your expectation? Do you think the judge is going to give you everything you want, because he or she is not going to do that? They are not your friend, and they are not going to see eye to eye with you on every single thing. You have to know that going in, and you can't blame your lawyer because you don't get everything you want. Now, I will say there are some lawyers that you might want to blame, but not most of the time. No. You just have to have reasonable expectations, and that's the lawyer's job to set that up.
I hear you loud and clear. Good points. So I imagine you can share some tips with us on how to co-parent more effectively that you found really do work.
There are some things that really do work, and things you should do and things you should never do. So I'm going to start with that. You should never vent to your child about your ex-spouse. And I mean never. And that means no matter what age the child is, if they're 8 or 28, you should not be venting about their father or their mother, whichever it is,
Mm-hmm.
to the child. They don't want to hear that. Your relationship with your ex is one thing. Their relationship with your ex is a whole different thing. That's their parent. Okay. You feel differently. Think about yourself. You feel differently about your parent than you do your spouse.
Of course.
I mean, and that's the whole problem there. And also, when you disparage the ex-spouse in front of the child, it makes the child sympathetic with the ex-spouse. Not he or she is not going to be sympathetic to you because you're the one griping about the ex-spouse. I mean, that just makes sense. So you're not going to get the result that you're looking for if you're doing that to get sympathy from the child. That won't happen. So it's just better for you, for the child, for the ex. Everybody's better off if you just don't do that. So I would always warn my clients about that.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing, or another thing, I think is real important is when you're making your separation agreement to start with, you need to be very child-centered, and just fits into what you talk about all the time, Rosalind. It's just you need to be thinking about your children more than yourself when you make that separation agreement, because that's what it's about. It's about the child. It's not necessarily about you and your convenience. So if you can do that, a lot of people can do that. They love their children enough to do that, to put them first. And that's really what it's about. So I think that's an important aspect because, and let me say this, it is your responsibility, not your lawyer's responsibility to do that. Your lawyer is there to help you with the legal aspect of what's going on. But you need to always, no matter what's going on legally, you need to always have your children's best interest first and foremost in your mind and in your heart.
Yeah, and it's amazing how we all pay lip service to that, and yet at the same time, parents will very easily lose their focus in that regard and make decisions that are definitely not in the best interest of the children, not in the best interest of everyone in the family, and so it creates a lot of havoc. You'll excuse my cat for coming to join us. He was interested in this topic too. So.
That's perfectly fine.
So we're going to stop for just a moment and take a quick break, and we will be right back. Hi, everyone. This is Rosalind Sedaka with WGSN-DB, the Going Solo Network. And I'm talking to Dena Nielson, who's a former attorney, and now she's an author and coach and an expert on co-parenting equation. And she's telling us things that can be found in her book on co-parenting expertise. And we were talking about the best interest of the kids to make sure that the other party is doing everything possible. Do you have some tips in that regard?
You know, it's hard to know every time what's happening in the other household, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you just got to do the best you can on that. But one thing I would say, and I suffered from this my very own self, so I know. But you've got to learn how to let go, and you've got to learn how to not be so micromanagement. I think a lot of people want to micromanage their children, and they want to micromanage this situation, and you just can't do that. You're going to be miserable the entire time if you do that. You will be miserable and your children will be miserable. And that's not the point here. That's what you're trying to avoid, I think. So in order to actually feel good about what's going on in the other household, you have to have better communication with the other spouse. That's what you have to do. And that goes back to what I said at the beginning, that really comes from the whole conflict of the divorce and carries over into the co-parenting.
Yeah, and you talk about common sense divorce. It seems like these things would be common sense, and yet we find that they're not, right? When we're dealing with some clients.
That's so true. That's so true. They don't teach common sense. You either have it or you don't.
Exactly. I very often will tell clients to try to catch your ex doing something right, because so much of the time when we're talking to them, we're talking about, you messed this up, you forgot that, you didn't do this, I wish you would have done that. And there's always a level of criticism. And it's nice to give them an attaboy on occasion, a pat on the back, a thanks, I really appreciate that. And it also teaches them how you want to be treated, because it would be nice to hear that from your co-parent now and then, right?
So true, so true. That is one of the things that I always told my clients is to, don't expect the worst from your ex-spouse. You might be surprised if you just give them the opportunity to do the right thing. Maybe they will, right?
Yeah,
So I
totally.
always said, be optimistic about how this is going to go. Don't constantly think doom and gloom, because if you give them their opportunity, they may want to be your helper instead of your, being working against you.
I agree, and I think that that's very significant. But as we both know, sometimes there are high conflict divorces that happen, whether it's intentional on the part of one or both parties, or whether they accidentally just fall into challenges that they can't handle, and it just escalates and escalates. And I was wondering what kind of advice you have when the conflict starts arising stronger.
Well, I think there's a couple of things that comes to mind with that. Of course, there's something called parallel parenting, where everybody just does their own thing and they don't necessarily communicate or talk with each other except by email or something like that. And sometimes that's what you have to do. But also, if it comes down to going back to court, which those kinds of situations many times end up in court, there's all kinds of experts that you can have to help you. Now, I'm not saying this is free. This is not free, but sometimes they're very, very helpful. In Colorado, we had family and child and family investigators, CFI, and they would investigate the home situation for the children in both homes. They would talk to the children in both homes. They would talk to the parents in both homes. They talk to teachers. They talk to the psychologists. They talk to whoever's involved, and they come out with a report that makes recommendations. That doesn't mean the court necessarily will adopt it 100% of the time. I've had it go both ways, actually. But most of the time they do give a lot of credit to that report, because obviously that's an expert and they've done an investigation. So that can be helpful sometimes. What I have had happen is we get the CFI report, and the parents immediately say, okay, we'll just go by this. We're not going any further. We're not going to see the judge. We just settle it based on this, or at least one party would want to do that. And if the other party still wanted to go to court, then we're going to court. But the judge is going to know, who wanted to settle and who didn't. They're going to figure that out pretty quick. So just keep in mind, I would say that if it's to the point where you can't work it out, and that happens sometimes, but try to avoid going in front of the judge if you can, because he doesn't know you. He doesn't, or she, but either one, they don't know you, and they don't know your children, and they're just guessing. I mean, literally, that's what's happening. And I hate to say that, but it's basically true. So
I agree, and so it's kind of like a lottery. You're just throwing yourself into a lot of unknowns, which
Yep.
may not be in the best interest of anyone in the family.
That's right. It probably won't be, because I literally have heard the judges say, you know what, when they come in here, if they all leave mad, I did my job, and I'm okay with that. I'm like, what? So your job is to make everybody mad. Okay. But that's what they think sometimes, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. Dena, before we go any further, I wanted to give you an opportunity to tell people again the name of your book and where they could find you and your book.
Oh, okay. Well, the book is called Common Sense Divorce. Here we are. It's on Amazon. It's easy to find. You just put it in there and it'll pop right up. And that book has everything from the first thought of being unhappy all the way through raising stepkids. So it's just an overview, really. It's not a deep dive into any of the topics. And it's not legal advice. It is, just like it says, common sense advice for things that you think you should know, but I know from experience that these are things that people do not know.
Yes.
And they would come into my office and sit down and start talking to me, and I would just go, no, that's not how it's going to go at all. Let me explain to you what's going to happen, you know. So, and there's some appendix in the back that are really helpful about, let me find it. There's some do-it-yourself forms listed by state, but then the links to each one is there, and you can use that to find the forms, at least, to do it yourself. There's the residential requirements for each state are included in the appendix, and then finally, there's the list of all the documents that you're going to need together for your attorney, information for preparing and documenting your financial statement. I think in most states, if not every state, well, I don't think it's every state, but in most states, you will be required to do a financial statement, and all of those documents have to be gathered. If you could get those together before you visit with your attorney, that would certainly save you a lot of time and money. So that's why I wanted to put that in there.
Excellent. That's wonderful to know. I understand you also have a free gift for our listeners.
I do have a free gift. I have a website. It's denanielson.com. Very simple. And if you go to denanielson.com/DRL Summits, you will get 22 do's and don'ts for co-parenting in 2022. Obviously, I'm going to have to change the name of this. Just 2023 is right on us. I can't even believe it. But it's the do's and don'ts of co-parenting, and I think it's been very helpful for the people that have downloaded that and taken it to heart. So I'd like to offer that to everyone.
Excellent. Well, that's very thoughtful of you, and I'm sure all of our viewers will appreciate it. I wanted to give you an opportunity to give us a takeaway that you think is one of the most important messages that we could keep in mind related to the co-parenting experience.
Well, I would just say this. Co-parenting isn't going to last as intensely as it is at first. It won't be like that all of the time. But you are going to be involved with your ex-spouse. If you have children with this person, you're going to be involved with him for years to come. I'm a grandmother. I still hear from my ex-spouse about the grandchildren now. Not so much about the kids, but more about the grandchildren. And I'm just like, really? But that's what it is. I mean, you're tied together whether you like it or don't like it. So, and that's what my law partner used to say. He said, like it, don't like it, that's the way it is. That was so, and that's true of co-parenting. So the sooner you can make that a civil and enjoyable experience, maybe not enjoyable is not the right word, but something that you can live with, let's put it that way. And the sooner that gets to that point, rather than the constant bickering and disagreements and blah, 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 all that, get rid of that and get to being civil with each other, because that's what your children want. They want you to be happy. They want both of you to be happy. And when your children are old enough, they will tell you that.
Yeah.
And so you want to make that situation that way for them. And if all you can do is text back and forth, start there and start texting back and forth. And then maybe it'll grow into, oh, now we can have real conversations. So that would be the best thing I could tell you that you could do to help yourself and to help your kids.
Thank you, Dena Nielson. You've been very, very helpful, and it's wonderful getting advice from you. You have a wealth of experience. So thanks so much for being a guest.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
And I just want to remind everyone that You've been listening to Rosalind Sadaka on divorce, dating, and empowered living on WGSN-DB, the Going Solo Network. And every time we do our interviews, they're with people who really care about families, children, creating a most positive experience through the divorce and long beyond into the co-parenting experience, dating after divorce, and all those related topics. So join us whenever you can, because our information is valuable to support you. You could also find more information about the Child-Centered Divorce Network and my coaching services at childcentereddivorce.com. Until next time, this is Rosalind Sadaka. Thank you so much, and bye-bye.